Hello everyone, I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about what happens when you take too much of the macronutrients of life. Is that a good thing? We'll talk about that. And we're also going to be talking about what happens to the macronutrients of life that you ingest into your body. So how are they broken down into smaller components? Specifically, we're going to be talking about cellular respiration. We're going to see how we say that your body is able to make a very important molecule that the cells use it as a source of energy. So we're going to be talking about ATP. So in chapter 4, we were talking about how if you don't take enough of the macronutrients of life, that's not a good thing. And that leads to malnutrition. And so today we're going to be talking about what happens when you take too much. Is that a good thing? Well, we'll find out. So obesity is having an unhealthy amount of body fat in your body. And it has been called America's #1 disease. As of 2017, more than 1/3 of the US adults are considered to be obese. So essentially, what is happening here is that you're taking too much of the macronutrients of life than what is necessary to keep you alive. And so what happens is that your body stores that extra energy as fat. So how do you know if you are obese or not? So we have what is called the body mass index, and that's basically an estimate of the amount of fat that it is in your body. And that takes into account the height and your weight. So if you have a BMI between 19 to 24, then you consider a healthy individual. If your BMI is between 25 to 29, then you consider an overweight. And a BMI of 30 plus, then you consider to be obese. So if we look over here, this is a chart, and on the y-axis we have the height in inches, and on the x-axis we have the weight in pounds. So the way to use this chart is like you look for your height. So in this case I'm 5'3", and then my weight it's 125. So in this case I will be considered a healthy individual. So the beautiful part about this chart is that it's actually color coordinated as well. So if you land here on the blue area, then you're considered to be underweight. If you land on the green area, then you're considered to be healthy. And if you land on the yellow one, you're considered to be overweight. The orange one is considered to be obese. And if you land on the red one, then you're considered to be extremely obese. And one of the things that I do, or I ask my students to do, is to take a couple of minutes and then for them to look at their BMI. And just to take a few minutes just to reflect on it. And, if you're either underweight or, overweight, so what are some of the changes that you're going to do in order to address this problem? Because this is a problem. Because, to be underweight is not healthy, and to be overweight is not healthy either. And so it's better to address the problem early on than later on in life. So what is obesity? So what happens here is that your body requires a certain amount of energy to keep you alive. And so what happens is that with obesity, people are taking too much energy, so they're basically eating too much of the macronutrients of life. And what happens is that your body only uses the amount that it needs in order to keep you alive. And that extra energy, the body stores it as fat. Now the thing about obesity is that it is something that happens throughout the years. Essentially, if you overeat, like say one day, that doesn't mean that you're gonna become obese. No, this takes basically time. It takes basically months to years. So as we discussed in the other chapter, so we obtain the energy that we need from the food that we consume, essentially from the macromolecules or macronutrients of life. And so our body breaks down these big macronutrients or big molecules into its smaller components. And then whenever you break down a bond, you're basically releasing energy. And so that energy, your body's using it to build more complex macromolecules. So building more proteins, building more carbohydrates, and building more lipids and fats. So depending on what macromolecule of life or macronutrient that you're consuming is going to have different amounts of energy. So, for example, when we look at fats, it contains 9 calories per gram. When you consume proteins and carbohydrates, it contains 4 calories per gram. So, as we can see, by consuming more fats, you are acquiring more energy. Now, the thing about fats, it's that it takes also a lot of energy to break down those fats once your body has stored them. And this is why if you overeat, essentially, right, if you become obese, essentially, what's going to require for you is to do strenuous exercise in order to essentially get rid of that fat. Now, when we look at nucleic acid, we see that it doesn't really provide you with much energy. So that's why it's not considered one of the macronutrients of life. But like I said before, without DNA, you don't have any other of the 3 macronutrients of life. So the question is, how much of the macronutrients of life does your body require in order to keep you alive? And the answer to that is that it varies from person to person. So for example, if you're an athlete, if you're doing exercise every single day, then your body is going to require more of the macronutrients of life. And it's because you're basically burning all that energy, and so your body is going to require more of the macronutrients of life. It also depends on genetics as well. So for example, there are certain individuals who have been blessed with really good genetics, and that they tend to burn those extra calories much faster than other individuals as well. And it also depends on gender as well. So for example, initially, when you have men and women who are doing exercise, the same amount of exercise, so what happens is that the men initially tend to lose fat much faster. But then eventually, both men and women lose fat equally. So the majority of us, we have a very busy life, that perhaps we don't have that extra time to go to the gym. So what are some of the things that we all can do to help us burn down those extra calories? So non-exercise activity thermogenetics are small activities that we all can do that is going to help us to burn down those extra calories. And we can do these small activities either at home or at work. And these activities include yard work, shopping, walking your dog, dancing at home while you're cooking. So on average, people who increase the amount of neat activities, they gain the lowest amount of fat. So essentially, what we're doing here is that we're basically moving around. And by moving around, we are burning those extra calories.